The dimensions and measurements quoted in this video are examples only. Our example deck is 4 feet wide by 8 feet deep. We assume in this video that the high or upstream side is on the structure side. The Magnolia kit is installed with a pitch of 1/8 inch per foot from the high side of the underdeck toward the gutter. There is an additional pitch of 1/16 inch per foot along the gutter toward the downspout. Measure your own project to determine the actual figures needed. You may round your measurement up to the next highest foot when determining the pitch. It is important to determine if the deck above you is level. Determine the level of your underdeck ceiling. Measure down 3 inches from the bottom of the bandboard on the high or structure side of your underdeck. Mark that measurement. Measure the bandboard to the opposite end, the gutter end, of your underdeck to the next highest foot. Add 1/8 inch per foot to allow for the drainage drop. Our 8-foot deep underdeck drops 1 inch toward the gutter. The level of the high end of the gutter is now established. Measure, cut, and attach the wall channel suspension bracket. Hold the end of the wall channel suspension bracket against the structure wall and mark the opposite end for the exact length it should be cut. Cut the wall channel suspension bracket to the length you just marked. Drive the provided self-tapping stainless steel screws into the wall channel suspension bracket and place a nylon spacer onto each screw. Attach the wall channel suspension bracket to the bandboard or rim joist. Only 2 or 3 screws are needed as the wall channel suspension bracket supports only its own weight. Identify the suspension wall channel. Measure and cut it to the proper length. This is the suspension wall channel. This end is factory formed to fit the gutter and must not be cut off. Place the unbent tab end of the suspension wall channel against the structure or high side. Hold the other end against the support post on the gutter side to mark its exact length. Cut the suspension wall channel at the mark, being certain not to cut the factory-made end. Measure down from the fold on the wall channel suspension bracket to the mark we made to define the level of the ceiling in the first step. Our example shows this measurement at 1 inch. The drop from the high side of the underdeck to the gutter is 1/8 inch per foot. Our model deck is 8 feet deep. This makes our ceiling level drop 1 inch. We measured and marked from the bandboard 4 inches to reflect that drop. Measure from the fold in the wall channel suspension bracket to the ceiling level and get 2 inches. On the upstream or structure end of the suspension wall channel, measure 1 inch from the manufactured edge. Add to that 1 1/2 inches which will be inserted into the wall channel suspension bracket. Mark that measurement. On the opposite end, measure an additional 1/8 inch per foot to account for the drainage drop. In the 8-foot model we used, the drop is 1 inch, so we showed 2 inches. Add to that the 1 1/2 inches which will be inserted into the wall channel suspension bracket. Mark that measurement. Snap a chalk line between the marks you just made on the suspension wall channel. Cut along the chalk line. Make a notch in the newly trimmed edge of the suspension wall channel using a snap lock punch. Hold the punch so that the protrusion it makes is on the painted side of the suspension wall channel. Bend the square tab on the suspension wall channel to a 90-degree angle. Insert the notched edge of the suspension wall channel into the folded edge of the wall channel support bracket. The notches will catch onto the folded edge on the inside of the wall channel support bracket. Screw the square tab on the suspension wall channel onto the support post on the gutter or downstream side. Mark, measure, trim, and install the gutter support. Mark and square the bottom of your gutter support to fit the dimensions of your support posts. The tab you are creating must be less than half the width of your support post. They must not overlap from one post to the next. Cut the corner of the gutter support lengthwise to your mark. Cut across at your mark to remove the tab. Notice the orientation of the cutout on the gutter support. Hold the trimmed end of the gutter support against the support post as shown. Mark the gutter support on the other end at the inside of the support post. Make a second mark at somewhat less than half the thickness of your support post. This shows the total length of the gutter support. The gutter supports must not overlap on the posts. Cut to length. Cut down to the corner of your gutter support. Cut along the corner of the gutter support and remove the cutout. Mark the level of the top of the gutter support at the bottom of the suspension wall channel. This confirms that the suspension wall channel has dropped 1/8 inch per foot. The level of our example deck is 4 inches. On the opposite end, the gutter support drops an additional 1/16 inch per foot. Our example level is 4 1/4 inches. Place the top of the gutter support level with the bottom of the suspension wall channel, which is the level of the ceiling, and attach it with a single screw. Pivot the opposite end of the gutter support until it is at the level of the lower end of the gutter. Drive a second screw into each end to hold the gutter support in place. Place the screws in the lower half of the gutter support. The top half is folded 4 times for strength, and the extra thickness will cause screw heads to protrude, causing the gutter to stand out from the support. Measure, cut, and install a second wall channel suspension bracket. This section describes how to install a wall channel suspension bracket where the underdeck changes shape from a simple rectangle. Hold the end of the second wall channel suspension bracket against the structure. Hold the other end at the support post and mark it to measure its length. Cut the wall channel suspension bracket to length. Place the trimmed wall channel suspension bracket against the structure. Then mark the depth of the build-out. Apply a generous amount of sealant evenly on the surface that will contact the wall. We supply GeoCell 2300 tripolymer sealant with all our kits. If the short build-out we illustrate here is in fact a wall that encloses the entire side of your underdeck, you will be supplied with a surface wall channel, the installation of which will be covered in a later section. Drive a screw a foot or so from the gutter end of the wall channel suspension bracket and a second screw about the same distance from the build-out on the other end. Place a spacer on each screw. Drive the screws that hold the wall channel suspension bracket in place into the rim joist. Installation of the second suspension wall channel follows these steps. They are repeated from the steps shown earlier in this video. Measure 3 inches down from the bottom of the rim joist at the upstream or structure end to determine the level of the ceiling at the structure. Hold the tabbed end of the suspension wall channel against the structure or high side of the underdeck. Measure the length of the suspension wall channel by holding it against the support post on the downstream or gutter side. Cut the suspension wall channel to that length. Measure down from the fold of the wall channel suspension bracket on the structure or upstream end to the mark made in step 1. Note that measurement. Measure down from the fold on the wall channel suspension bracket on the downstream end to the top of the gutter support. Note that measurement. Add 1 1/2 inches to the measurements made in step 4 and 5. Mark the measurements you just created on each end of the suspension wall channel. Cut along that line. Make a notch in the newly trimmed edge of the suspension wall channel using a snap lock punch. Hold the punch so that the protrusion it makes is on the painted side of the suspension wall channel. Bend the square tab on the suspension wall channel to a 90-degree angle. Insert the newly trimmed edge of the suspension wall channel into the fold on the wall channel suspension bracket. Tug the wall channel toward the gutter to close any gap. Drive a screw through the tab on the gutter end of the suspension wall channel to hold it firmly in place. The suspension wall channel will stand out from the structure slightly. Drive screws to hold it properly against the wall. Apply sealant to prevent leaks along the wall channel suspension bracket. Use this method to test for leaks wherever sealant is applied. A good practice is to test for and repair any leaks as soon as the sealant is applied. Use a small pressurized garden sprayer directing a thin stream of water to check if the sealant applied in a previous step leaks. A leak will show up immediately. If a leak appears, run a bead of sealant between the wall channel support bracket and the structure wall. Use a thin tool to spread the sealant after it is applied. A 1/4 by 1/2 inch carpenter's pencil is ideal. It is important that the bottom of the band board not be sealed. Water must not be trapped behind the band board. It must be allowed to drain away from the structure. Prepare the gutter. The gutter length equals the span of the deck above from the outside of each perimeter band board. Attach and crimp an end cap on each end of the gutter. Apply and smooth the sealant between the gutter and the end cap. Locate and mark the position of the downspout opening. Cut the downspout opening. Insert the outlet into the opening. Apply sealant to the outside of the gutter at the downspout outlet. We do not recommend sealing the gutter on the inside at the outlet as it may restrict the flow of water to the downspout. Attach the gutter. Locate the gutter's top back edge at the top of the gutter support and at the bottom edge of the suspension wall channel. Drive a screw into each support post. The top of the gutter is now at the ceiling height. Hook the curved end of the gutter hanger under the lip of the gutter and then drive a screw through the gutter hanger and into the gutter support. Place a gutter hanger at least every 32 inches. Place them under a joist as shown. Install the surface wall channel. The surface wall channel we illustrate here is located on the upstream or high side wall. It may be installed on any part of the structure that runs the entire width or depth of the underdeck. The surface wall channel is installed between the suspension wall channels measured on the bottom sides as shown. Measure the surface wall channel and cut it to length. Using the metal bending tool, lift each end of the surface wall channel to approximately 45 degrees. This will prevent any water that falls on the surface wall channel from draining over the end of the channel and inside. Attach the surface wall channel with screws about every 16 inches to 2 feet apart. The wall channels are mounted so that the bottom surfaces are level, with no contact between the two on the upper or lower surfaces. Install the corner covers. The screw holding the suspension wall channel or surface wall channel may need to be loosened slightly to make the next step possible. Insert the corner cover and close the tabs. Use a seamer to get the tabs tight. If pliers are used, protect the surface of the corner cover. Repeat the process on the other end where the surface wall channel and the suspension wall channel meet. Apply sealant to the top of the wall channel suspension bracket where it meets the structure wall. Smooth the sealant as usual. If you are confident that the builder's flashing between the main structure and the deck is intact and does not leak, you do not need to seal more than the corners where the wall channel suspension brackets meet the structure wall. If you have any doubt, continue sealing the structure wall channel. It is easier to take this extra step now than to come back for a repair. Be sure to test for water leaks as previously shown. The installation of the corner caps provides additional protection against leaks. They sit inside the deck structure and above the underdeck. They provide a double layer of protection by catching water that may get past the builder's flashing and divert it outward to the ceiling panels before it gets to the sealant applied to the wall channel suspension bracket in the corner. Install a corner cap onto the deck structure above the structure wall channel. On any corner cap installation, be sure to bend the corner down to ensure that any water that falls on it will be diverted onto the surface wall channel, the wall channel suspension bracket, or the suspension wall channel and be directed to the ceiling panels. Apply and smooth sealant. Repeat the corner cap installation at the opposite end of the structure wall channel. Install the between post suspension bracket. Measure and mark the between post suspension bracket. Then cut the suspension bracket to its proper length. Drive 2 screws into the between post suspension bracket, one near each end. Place a spacer washer on each screw. Attach the between post suspension bracket to the band board. Prepare the gutter flashings for installation. Using a small piece of scrap material, extend the angle from the fold on the gutter support to mark it toward the inside edge of the support post. Repeat this mark on each end of the gutter support. Extend the lower end of the mark onto the gutter side of the support post on each post. Measure up from the top of the gutter hanger to the mark on the support post. Note this measurement. It indicates the height of the lower gutter flashing. Repeat on each end. Measure and mark from the folded side of the lower gutter flashing to indicate its height on both ends. Cut the gutter flashing to its proper height. Trim the lower gutter flashing to fit against the suspension wall channel on either end of the gutter. Attach the lower gutter flashing to the support posts. The upper gutter flashing's length is the same as the between post suspension bracket or the distance between the support posts. Square and mark the upper gutter flashing to its proper length. Measure the distance from the fold in the between post suspension bracket to the inside edge of the lower gutter flashing. Add 1 1/2 inches to that measurement. Cut the upper gutter flashing to length. Cut the long side to the measurement you just made, remembering to add the 1 1/2 inches to that measurement. Notch the edge of the upper gutter flashing for insertion into the fold of the between post suspension bracket. Insert the notched edge of the upper gutter flashing into the fold on the between post suspension bracket. Engage the notch in the between post suspension bracket. You may wish to drive a gutter screw to hold the upper gutter flashing in position on the lower gutter flashing. Shorter pieces will probably not flex enough to make this necessary. Seal the top edge of the lower gutter flashing and the top edge of the upper gutter flashing. Smooth and water test the sealant. Attach a corner cap to the inside of the deck structure on both sides of the downstream or gutter side of the underdeck. Bend the corner cap downward to ensure that water flows away from the deck structure. Seal, smooth, and water test the corner cap. The gutter flashing and corner cap installation is repeated on the opposite end of this span and at every support post on your project. Prepare and install the between post cover. Square across from the bottom of the gutter support to mark the level of the underdeck ceiling on the high end of the gutter. Measure from the fold in the gutter support to the outside edge of the support post at the ceiling height. Add 1 1/2 inches to that measurement. Measure down from the fold in the between post suspension bracket to the line you just made at the ceiling height. Add 1 1/2 inches to that measurement. Repeat these measurements on the downspout end of the gutter. Don't forget to add the 1 1/2 inches to the measurements you make. The measurements you are making reflect the drop in the gutter toward the downspout. Measure the distance between the support posts. Deduct 1 inch from that measurement. Continue to mark the ceiling level and the dimensions of the between post cover using these steps on both sides of every post toward the downspout. Mark the between post cover to the determined length. Remember to deduct 1 inch from the distance between the support posts. Cut the between post cover to length. Using the dimensions determined in a previous step, mark and trim both sides of the between post cover. Remember to add the 1 1/2 inches that insert into the between post suspension bracket and the gutter support. After the cut, the between post cover will be tapered to match the drop of the gutter support bracket. Place the between post cover trim onto each end of the between post cover. Cut them to fit. You may use a seamer to snug down the trim onto the between post cover. Notch both sides of the between post cover, holding the notcher so that the protrusion it makes is on the painted side of the between post cover. Insert the between post cover into the fold on the between post suspension bracket and into the fold on the gutter support. Using a wide flat blade, bump the between post cover trim to close the gap at the support post on each end of the between post cover. Prepare and install the ceiling panels. Determine the length of the ceiling panels. Hook a tape measure on the inside edge of the gutter at the point where you will begin the panel installation. Measure toward the opposite wall to the inside vertical face of the structure wall channel. Deduct 1/4 inch from that measurement. This will leave room for thermal expansion and contraction of the panels. Do not assume that all panels will be the same length. Some decks may not be square. Check and adjust this measurement occasionally. Trim the panel to length. Measure the panel's length from the center of the prepared end. That end is bent to hook onto the gutter. Mark and square your measurement. If you trim the panels by hand, cut the vertical sides to the proper length. Draw a utility knife across the panel to score your mark. The deeper the cut, the fewer bends will be needed to break the panel. If you use a power saw, be sure the blade is up to speed before touching the panel. Bend the bottom of the panel toward its inside. Make the bend about 45 degrees. This bend stiffens the panel and prevents cupping along its length. Panel latches are not required on panels less than 10 feet in length. If your plan involves panels greater than 10 feet, you will be given custom instructions on the number and location of the panel latches with your kit. The panel latches are attached to a 1x4 piece of pressure-treated lumber which is placed perpendicular to the direction of the panels. 5/4 deck boards ripped lengthwise also serve well. Drive a 3 or 4 inch screw through the panel latch suspension board into the deck joists. Leave space between the joist and the panel latch suspension board to adjust the height and levelness of the ceiling panels. Place the hooked end of the panel over the side of the gutter. Place the end you previously trimmed to length into the structure wall channel opposite the gutter. Insert the length of the panel all the way into the suspension wall channel. Close the gap between the panel and the gutter. Tug the panel sharply toward the structure wall channel to lock the panel into place. Measure the exposed surface of the panel on each end. Adjust the panel in or out to ensure the panel installation begins square. You must maintain 1 1/2 inches clearance between the panels and the panel latch suspension board. Adjust the screw on the panel latch suspension board to maintain this clearance. It is important that the screw that holds the panel latch to the panel latch suspension board be at the proper distance from the panel and that they be plumb to the vertical side of the panel. Magnolia supplies a jig for use in piloting the panel latch screws to accomplish this. The hook on the panel latch is placed under the bend of the panel. Place the tip of the screw into the pilot hole you just created with the jig. Drive the panel latch screw until the hook is just touching the panel but not lifting it. After the panel latch is installed, the 1 1/2 inch clearance remains between the panel and the panel latch suspension board. A long panel may tend to sag slightly of its own weight. Sight along the length of the panel to see if this is the case. If so, adjust the height of the panel latch suspension board to true the panel without disturbing the 1 1/2 inch clearance you just established. Lifting the edge of the panel will move the panel latch out of the way for removal. The second and subsequent panels are installed similarly. Panel latches may be installed if needed. Use the provided jig to pilot the screw into the panel latch suspension board. The length of your panels determines the number and placement of your panel latches. Each kit will be provided with specific recommendations. Thermal expansion in the gutter may cause the unattached curved side of the gutter to lengthen and sag. To counteract this, Magnolia employs a joist gutter hanger. This feature reinforces the gutter, causing it to resist distortion from thermal expansion. It also allows the gutter to bear significantly more weight without distortion. The joist gutter hanger slips under the gutter hanger itself as shown. As previously noted, the gutter hangers are placed under a joist when the gutter is installed. Install the joist gutter hanger toward the back or flat side of the gutter to allow space for panel removal. Continue the panel installation until you have space for one last panel. Do not lock the next to last panel in place. Measure from the edge of the next to last panel to the vertical surface of the suspension wall channel. If this distance will not accommodate a full panel, you can trim one to fit. Measure both ends of your opening. Your deck may not be square. Then deduct 1/2 inch from each measurement. Note that measurement. Remove the next to last panel and set it aside. Ensure that the panel is properly aligned to trim from the overlap side of the panel. You will remove the vertical side. Mark the measurement you created for each end of the panel. Snap a chalk line along the panel. If using a power saw to trim the panel, be sure to protect the panel from scratching. Trim the panel. Attach the custom panel strip to the trimmed side of the last ceiling panel. Notch the custom panel strip to hold it in place on the last panel. Seal the pieces together and smooth the sealant. This is the profile of the attached custom panel strip. Rest the prepared end panel on the gutter and slide it into the suspension wall channel and the structure wall channel. Press the panel all the way into the surface wall channel for its entire length. Ensure that the opening fits the width of an untrimmed panel, 10 5/8 inches. Adjust the panel if needed. Lock the panel into place. Recheck the opening to 10 5/8 inches on both ends. Use a suction cup to handle the last panel. The type we show is available in the bath section of many hardware and big box stores and is very effective. We have also found that Gorilla brand tape can be made into a handle. Residue has not been an issue for us if the tape is removed immediately. Apply the handle to the upstream end of the panel opposite the gutter. Slip the panel into place and lock it. If long panel latches are used, they must be engaged. Press the joint between the last two panels upwards until a distinct click is heard. The long panel latches are engaged. To remove an installed panel, first disengage the panel latches. Lift both panels where they meet, and while supporting one panel, relax the lift on the panel you wish to remove. Repeat this with every panel latch along the panel. Remove the panel. Carefully insert a wide, stiff blade between the gutter and the panel. Pull the handle down to open the fold on the end of a panel. Attach a suction cup near the gutter and pull down on the panel. While pulling down on the suction cup, bump it sharply toward the gutter until the opposite end of the panel is clear of the structure wall channel. To replace a ceiling panel, close the bend on the end of the panel you removed so that the gap is about 1/4 inch. Place the end of the panel on the gutter with the flat side down, sliding the panel as far as you can into the gutter. Relax the slant on the panel and slip the end into the structure wall channel. Tug the panel until the other end of the panel engages with the gutter. Engage the panel latches if installed. Magnolia Underdecks has guided you through the complete installation of our new underdeck design, including the removal and replacement of an individual panel. Thank you for your attention.